Morgan Le Fay is an Arthurian mage in the newest goddess coming to SMITE. Her passive is called Empowered Blade. Each time she deals damage to an enemy with one of her abilities, they become marked with a symbol. Each stack gives Morgan Le Fay 2 magical power plus 0.4 for each of her levels. Once her sword is empowered with all 5 symbols, she gains double the magical power buff and gets a 10-second cooldown on her ultimate before the symbols are drained. Her first ability is called Sigil Mastery. She summons a magical sword to crash down in a targeted area, dealing damage to enemies. Enemies inside of the inner circle are dealt extra damage. This ability also has secondary effects that is determined by which mark you choose. Mark of Mind will fear enemies from the center for 1 second. Mark of Body will slow enemies for 35%. And finally, Mark of Soul will spawn a decoy that attacks enemy gods for 4 seconds. Each mark applied to an enemy with this ability goes towards your passive. Morgan Le Fay's second ability is called Dragonflight. She summons a dragon from the ground that deals damage to enemies as well as knocks them up. The dragon then flies forward and deals damage once again, this time knocking enemies backwards. Her third ability is called Shroud of Wildfire. Morgan Le Fay sends out a burst of fire that damages enemies and stops on the first enemy god hit. Once it hits an enemy god or reaches the end of the ability, it will explode and deal tick damage to enemies inside of the area. If an enemy uses a movement speed buff while they're taking tick damage, they will also be dealt bonus damage. Morgan Le Fay also gains a movement speed buff for 4 seconds whenever she casts this ability, which goes up to 24% at max rank. And finally, her ultimate is called Consuming Power. She consumes the marks of enemies in front of her, which deals damage and prepares her next strikes. After this, she can fire 3 times at enemies, dealing damage and healing a missing portion of her health per hit. The size of these strikes are increased for each mark that is consumed beforehand.
Woohoo! You possess hidden potential. Cancel that. Do not forget the name Morgan Le Fay. Delightful. Oh, my plans have yet to be realized.